At the engagement banquet, my two childhood sweethearts suggested that I should draw lots to choose a wife among the girls present. Whoever drew the paper slip with a turtle would marry me, but unexpectedly, the one who was supposed to go first pulled over a passing waitress to take her place. By the time the waitress realized what was happening, she was already holding the slip with the turtle drawn on it. That was when I understood, my two childhood sweethearts had staged this act together, forcing me to pick a mute waitress as my fiancée, just to humiliate me in front of everyone. Their true purpose was simply to vent their anger for the poor student they liked. Just when they thought I would bow my head, apologize to the poor student, and then choose one of them as my fiancée again, to their shock, I instead took the waitress's hand in front of everyone and announced that she was the one I would marry. Chapter 1. George, since you can't decide between Maria and me, let's make it simple, draw lots to choose your wife. Willow proposed, and Maria, standing beside her, nodded eagerly, clearly delighted by the idea. Whoever draws the slip with the word turtle on it will be the one you marry. How about that? I looked at the two childhood sweethearts in front of me. Willow's face was full of cunning, and Maria's eyes were brimming with anticipation. Although I felt uneasy inside, thinking of how I had spoiled them all these years, I reluctantly nodded in agreement. But who could have expected Willow to play against the rules? She was supposed to draw first, yet she suddenly dragged over a young waitress, forcing her hand into the lot box. The waitress looked utterly confused, and before she could react, Willow had already snatched the slip from her hand and unfolded it proudly. "Ha ha, turtle." As she spoke, she deliberately showed it to everyone present. I stared at the turtle drawn on the slip, veins bulging on the back of my hand. Of course it was a turtle. After all, when they persuaded me to play this game of drawing lots for a wife, I had asked them, what if someone else drew the turtle? Willow had sworn confidently, "It's just for show. I already drew turtles on every slip, and since I'll be the first to draw, your wife will definitely be me." Maria had also rushed to say she would draw first. Seeing how prepared they were, I didn't want to spoil their fun, so I agreed, but I never expected. At that moment, Willow cast a playful glance at Makoto nearby, then looked back at me, her tone faintly provocative. "George, now that this mute waitress drew the turtle, by the rules, you have to marry her." I glared at Makoto. He was a poor student whom my family had sponsored, and right now he was smiling faintly, as if he had known all along. The waitress was mute, but her hearing was sharp. Realizing that everyone was mocking her, she waved her hands frantically, signing her refusal. Willow only sneered, "You're just a waitress, and a mute at that. Do you even know who George is? He's the only heir of the richest family in City A, the Wangs. If he wants to marry you, shouldn't you be grateful? How dare you act ungrateful?" The waitress's expression dimmed, her hands falling weakly at her sides. She knew that in this banquet hall, before all these heirs and heiresses of high society, she was nothing more than meat on the chopping block, at their mercy. Seeing my dark expression and silence, Maria hurried to smooth things over. "George, Willow is joking. Of course you're not really going to marry this mute. She's just upset because you embarrassed Makoto at the table earlier. Why don't you just apologize to Makoto, and then we'll call it even?" That was when I finally understood. I raised my head, looking at Willow in disbelief. "So the reason you pushed me into this game was all for Makoto? For him, you were willing to treat my marriage like a joke?" What infuriated me even more was that Makoto had remained calm from beginning to end, which meant the three of them had planned this together, keeping me in the dark as the only fool. My gaze swept across Maria and Willow. Now that I had exposed them, Maria dared not meet my eyes. Willow's face flashed with a hint of embarrassment, but she still spoke stubbornly. "If you don't apologize, then you have to marry this mute." Since I didn't spare even a glance at Makoto, clearly unwilling to apologize, Willow lost her temper too. She yanked the waitress forward and shoved her roughly toward me. "You're going to marry him. The two of you might as well start getting acquainted." The waitress stumbled, nearly falling, but I reacted quickly. Catching her in my arms, I held her steady before letting go. The girl in front of me looked no more than 20, her delicate face now pale with panic. Using sign language, I exchanged a few words with her and quickly learned the basics of her situation. Meanwhile, Willow was still mocking loudly, the dignified young master of the Wang family marrying a lowly waitress, and a mute no less. "You'll bring utter disgrace to the Wangs. Just wait until everyone in our circle laughs at you." And then, before she could finish, my firm voice cut through the hall. "I'll marry her." Chapter 2, I never joke. As my resolute words fell, the noisy commotion around us abruptly stopped. The mockery on Willow's face froze in an instant. Her eyes widened, staring at me in disbelief. "What did you just say?" My gaze remained firm as I repeated clearly. I said, "I will follow the rules of the game, and marry her." I gripped the waitress's wrist tightly, the strength of my hold passing through her sleeve, giving her an inexplicable sense of reassurance. Seeing this, Maria grew flustered, rushing out in panic to try to salvage the situation. George must be teasing everyone. He's always been so good to Willow and me. How could he possibly marry a mute so casually? On the sofa, a flicker of complex emotion flashed across Makoto's eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. The corners of his lips curved into a faint smile, as though the matter had nothing to do with him. I think George just wants to put on a show in front of everyone. He doesn't really intend to marry her. Once this is over, he can easily find an excuse to dismiss the waitress. For the Wong family, that would be nothing more than child's play. The moment Willow and Maria heard this, they immediately felt reassured, their panic vanishing without a trace. When they looked at me again, their faces were filled only with undisguised disgust. George, didn't you agree that whoever drew the turtle would be the one you marry? To go back on your word now doesn't seem very manly. Their mocking words stabbed at me like thorns, piercing deeply. The disdain on their faces made my breath catch in my chest. It hadn't always been like this. When I was a child, I suffered from autism, trapped in my own world, shutting out all signals from the outside. Doctors warned that if this continued, I might never be able to integrate into society, completely cut off from the world, until one day, I was kidnapped by human traffickers and happened to be spotted by Willow and Maria on their way home from school. The two little girls were unbelievably brave. To save me, they dared to stall and argue with the traffickers. In the struggle, Willow's neck was strangled red by the thug, and Maria's arm was cut by his knife. Let them go. I've already called the police. Those were the first words I ever shouted out loud in panic. In the end, with the help of passers-by, I was rescued, and the traffickers were arrested. From that day on, I got to know those two girls. I no longer avoided their company, and instead tried to overcome my barriers to interact with them. Gradually, my autism improved. We grew up together as the closest childhood companions. Back then, they always put me first. When someone maliciously broke my model car, they would stand up for me and scold the culprit fiercely. When people spread slander about them, I would fight tooth and nail to find the liar and defend their honor. Over time, it seemed they had developed feelings for me. Everyone in our circle knew they liked me, and all assumed I would marry one of them. Because of that, my family never arranged any blind dates for me all these years. But everything changed with the arrival of Makoto. Makoto was one of the poor students sponsored by my family. After graduating from university, in order to express his gratitude, he insisted on treating me to dinner. During that meeting, his words were filled with self-deprecation. To preserve his dignity, I agreed to go. That day, Willow and Maria came along as well. After that brief encounter with Makoto, their visits to me became fewer and fewer. Instead, they grew closer and closer to him. At first, I thought it was just their outgoing nature and that they had many friends. But when they used my marriage as a joke simply to cheer Makoto up, I finally understood, in their hearts, my place had already been replaced by him. Taking a deep breath, I spoke calmly yet firmly. You seem to have forgotten, I never joke. Chapter 3, Humiliation. The moment those words left my mouth, Willow and Maria were both stunned again. George, because of his childhood experiences, never joked. He was infamous for being deadly serious. They still remembered that one time when, on a whim, they said they wanted to raise a little wild boar as a pet. To their shock, George didn't say a word, but instead ran straight into the mountains and actually brought one back for them. When George appeared before them, his body covered in wounds, his clothes torn, yet clutching a little wild boar tightly in his arms, the two girls had been completely dumbfounded. The Wong family's butler even added fuel to the fire, saying that George had caught several boars but rejected them all, insisting he had to bring back the smallest one. It was then they realized that George's word was as solid as iron. Every promise he made, he kept. How could they have forgotten that? As I was about to have the servants take the waitress away to be settled at the Wong residence, Willow's expression turned cold. She suddenly shoved the waitress hard, then looked at me with icy eyes. George, this time we only wanted to teach you a lesson. Who told you to humiliate Makoto at the dinner table? Maria picked up Willow's words and chimed in. That's right. Why did you bully him? It's not his fault he comes from a poor family. The two of them clung tightly to what happened at the table, trying to pin the blame on me. Finally, I couldn't hold it in any longer. My expression darkened. Are you sure it was me who humiliated him? I pulled the waitress, who had been pushed around and left helpless, behind me, served her a bowl of soup, and told her to eat something while she waited. Then, I turned back to face Willow and Maria, my voice tinged with both anger and helplessness. You really don't know what happened at the table just now? Makoto, under the guise of studying psychology, kept prying into my past with autism. You both know how unbearable those days were for me, how I clawed my way out of that darkness. His relentless questioning was nothing but an attempt to tear open my scars, rip apart the flesh I worked so hard to heal, and then sprinkle salt into the wound. And you know the doctors warned me not to dwell too much on the past, or else the autism could relapse. Besides, Since when does psychology mean ripping open people's scars? Even my former therapist never forced me to recall memories I didn't want to revisit. I only snapped back at him with a single line: how is that considered humiliating him? If he wallows in self-pity and you sympathize with him, that's your business. But your way of pleasing him, of siding with him, is built on treating me like a clown. This ends here. From now on, we go our separate ways. I poured everything out in one breath, as though all the grievances and injustice I had endured these past days had finally found release. Those present were stunned into silence by my words. In their impression, Makoto was the boy who cried to get what he wanted, while I was the kind of child who, even with only one piece of candy, would hand it over to Makoto without hesitation if the adults asked. So, little by little, they had all overlooked just how lonely that boy in the shadows truly was, the one who could only look up at others' happiness, and how much silent suffering he had borne. Willow and Maria exchanged a glance. It seemed even they realized they had gone too far this time. Just as they were about to speak, Makoto suddenly rushed forward, tugging at their sleeves. It's all my fault. I'm the sinner who caused the misunderstanding between you and George. I'll leave now and never disturb you again. Chapter 4, I do. He had fair skin and a boyish, gentle face. At this moment, his eyes were slightly red, and those puppy-like eyes softened Willow's heart against her will. She instinctively held onto Makoto and said firmly, "You're not allowed to leave. We'll be your friends, and no one can stop us." Maria quickly echoed, "This has nothing to do with you. You don't need to blame yourself. If anyone is at fault." Her gaze suddenly turned cold as she glared fiercely at the waitress. It's that mute who doesn't know her place. She should recognize her status. How dare she dream of marrying George? Get out of here. I noticed the waitress's body tremble slightly. Maria's absurd logic made me laugh out of anger. How had I never realized before that this was what they were truly like? The fault was mine for being blind. As the waitress, humbled and timid, was about to leave, I once again took hold of her wrist and looked coldly at Willow and Maria. Let me make this clear today. George, never go back on my word once it's spoken. From now on, you will show her respect. She is not a mute, she is your sister-in-law. As my words fell, Willow and Maria's faces darkened terribly, but the disdain in their eyes as they looked at my unknown fiancé remained. George, I want to see whether you really intend to bring this mute home as your wife. With that, the two of them left with Makoto. The guests also dispersed one after another. The birthday banquet ended on such an unpleasant note. Even my grandfather's gaze at me carried deeper meaning. At last, he only said, "You brat, you brought this trouble on yourself. Now you deal with it. You've spoken your vow in front of everyone today. Don't let people laugh at you. Otherwise, I'll be the first to break your legs." "Grandpa, I understand." After that, I sent my grandfather off. For a moment, the grand banquet hall was left with only me and the waitress. I saw her head lowered, her slender fingers nervously twisting together. Suddenly, I remembered, when Makoto had been forcing questions about my autism at the banquet earlier, while others were either silent, curious, or even gloating, this little waitress had been the only one standing up, gesturing non-stop. Others couldn't understand, but I could, because of my autism. I had learned sign language. She had been signing over and over, "Don't bring up autism again. It could relapse." When she saw that Makoto either didn't understand or was deliberately pressing me, in her desperation, she even tried to cover his mouth with a napkin. It was precisely because of this that Willow and Maria noticed her, and used her as their pawn to humiliate me. Thinking of this, guilt welled up inside me as I looked at her. In the end, it was I who had dragged her into this mess. Although I had already asked about her basic situation through sign language earlier, she was unmarried, had no boyfriend, and was currently single. I still motioned for her to sit down. Just as I was about to ask whether she felt wronged marrying me, she signed first, saying that she was the one who had dragged me down. But I told her I was truly willing to marry her. Looking at her pure, lily-like face, her delicate brows and eyes, in the past, I had no concept of beauty. But now, I felt this girl was genuinely pleasing to the eye, bringing a sense of lightness and joy to my heart. Before, I never knew what kind of wife I wanted. But at this moment, I suddenly felt that if the one to share the rest of my life was this girl before me, then the future was something I could look forward to with hope. So, I signed to her. The Wang family has an ancestral rule: one lifetime, one partner. If anyone breaks it, they will be expelled from the Wang family, their name erased from the genealogy, and from then on, they will no longer be part of the Wang family, in life or in death. I will do everything I can to treat you well. Will you give me this chance? Our eyes met. She looked at me, just as she had years ago, just as in her dreams, unchanged. Her heart stirred, and she nodded immediately. Slowly but firmly, she signed, "I do." Chapter 5, A Touch of Romance. I learned that my fiancée's name was Anna. She was not only beautiful, but even her name sounded pleasant. She casually mentioned that she was all alone and said nothing about her past. I assumed she was an orphan, so following my grandfather's wishes, I arranged for her to settle down in the Wang residence. To restore the family's reputation, my grandfather wanted us to marry as soon as possible, and the wedding date was set for just half a month later. For this reason, we decided to live together in advance, so we could get to know each other better. Of course, before the wedding, Anna would continue to stay in the guest room. The next morning, when I woke up, the dining table was already filled with breakfast. At first, I thought it was prepared by the servants, but upon closer inspection, the dishes were quite different from the usual fare. Just as I was full of doubt, Anna Sue walked out of the kitchen, carrying a steaming pot of soup. Since I usually treated everyone with kindness, the servants weren't overly cautious around me. One of them smiled and said, "Miss Sue got up before dawn and insisted on making breakfast for you herself." I told her this was our job, but she wouldn't listen. "Just look at this meal. The color, aroma, and taste are all perfect. Her cooking skills are far better than ours. Young master, please try it." Hearing this, I immediately rolled up my sleeves, took the bowl of soup from Anna's hands, and said seriously, "You don't need to cook. That's what the servants are here for. If you do it, they'll feel uneasy. Besides, when you marry into the Wang family, you'll be my wife, not a housemaid. If you feel bored, I'll take you out later to buy some things you like. Just focus on what makes you happy." But Anna only smiled and signed. I like cooking. When she was abroad, she wasn't used to hiring servants, so she did everything herself. For her, cooking wasn't just a survival skill, it was a form of comfort. Like how some people relied on music or binge-watching dramas to relax. For her, making delicious food was a way to relieve stress, and especially, she glanced at me, her delicate brows and eyes carrying a touch of spring warmth. Cooking for someone she liked gave her an even greater sense of fulfillment. Seeing this, my heart warmed. I smiled back and said, "If you truly enjoy it, then next time we'll cook together. I'll keep you company." I thought nothing more of it. I just wanted to do something together with the one I was drawn to, no matter what it was. Although my grandfather said he wouldn't interfere with my decisions, as the only bloodline of the Wang family and the child he had raised himself, how could he not worry about my marriage? So, under the excuse of being too lonely, he moved in with us, secretly observing. When he saw that Anna and I communicated entirely in sign language, his brows furrowed in suspicion. He looked at the butler. "Didn't you say the granddaughter-in-law could hear perfectly fine and just couldn't speak? Then why doesn't George talk at all? What are they saying? Translate for me." The butler, who had once learned sign language to take care of me, thought their gestures weren't anything secret, so he explained, "Master, haven't you noticed, when they speak in sign language, their eyes are fixed only on each other?" My grandfather suddenly understood something, and gave a light snort. "This brat." After breakfast, I took Anna out. I thought she would want to shop for clothes, bags, or jewelry, but instead, she went straight to a music store and picked out a pile of instruments. Seeing her so fascinated, I assumed she wanted to learn. Without hesitation, I bought them all and even cleared out a large storeroom at home to convert it into a music room. Once everything was set up, I asked if she needed a music teacher, but Anna only smiled silently, walked straight to the piano, and sat down with elegant poise. Chapter 6, outstanding in every way. A rendition of the third piano concerto suddenly flowed from her fingertips, at times vigorous and powerful, resonant and passionate, at times nimble and tranquil, sorrowful yet graceful. I was completely captivated, unable to extricate myself, until Anna's gentle gaze fell upon me, pulling me back to awareness. My emotions were tangled and indescribable. It was well known that this concerto was not only rich in emotion but also renowned worldwide for its technical difficulty. Yet Anna's mastery of the piano was flawless, perfected to the highest level. Seeing me silent, Anna thought I didn't like it. She signed softly, "Do you like the guzheng?" My expression shifted slightly, curiosity flickering in my eyes. "You can play the guzheng too." Anna smiled faintly, walked over to the guzheng, and plucked the strings lightly. A soothing, graceful melody began to flow, ethereal and healing. It felt as though it could wash away the dust from one's soul, transporting the listener into a pastoral scene of plucking chrysanthemums by the eastern fence. Gazing leisurely at the southern mountain, I felt even more strongly that Anna was like a hidden treasure, waiting for me to discover her depths. Unable to resist, I moved closer, wanting to learn more about her talents. What followed was practically Anna's personal talent showcase. She alone seemed to be an entire orchestra. Every instrument in the music room came alive in her hands, weaving together into beautiful symphonies. Soon, the entire villa was drawn in by the soothing sound, as though their very eardrums were cleansed. Everyone's eyes on Anna grew more respectful, even reverent. When the music ended, Anna looked at me expectantly, like a student awaiting her teacher's evaluation. A flicker of unease crossed my face as I awkwardly signed. How could an amateur like me dare to comment? The butler, knowing my reserved nature and poor way with words, teased with a laugh. Young master, just tell her, do you like it or not? I nodded repeatedly and said seriously, Anna is amazing. I like it very much. Then, as if remembering something, I added, of course, even if Anna weren't amazing, as long as she is Anna, I will like her. At that, gentle laughter spread through the room, and Anna's cheeks flushed pink as she shyly lowered her head. Outside the door, my grandfather witnessed it all, his gaze growing deeper. He had thought Anna was introverted and insecure, but the more he observed, the more he realized, not only was she not insecure, she carried herself with the grace and composure of a true noblewoman. Her poise and dignity far surpassed those of ordinary socialites. Silently, my grandfather mused, Anna's temperament and upbringing could not have been nurtured by any ordinary family. It seemed necessary to investigate her background. As for me, I had always preferred peace and quiet, but to fit into Willow and Maria's world, I had been forced to endure parties and occasions I disliked. Anna, however, was different. She seemed to understand my preferences and feelings instinctively, and her interests aligned with mine. When I worked in the study, Anna would quietly sit on the sofa reading, never disturbing me. Whenever I looked up, I would catch her gentle, graceful expression. Noticing my gaze, she would smile, pour me a cup of tea, and we would clink cups in silence, our affection deepening in that wordless understanding. When she felt like making desserts, I would put aside my work without hesitation and join her in whisking eggs and kneading dough. She, with her skillful hands, would create all sorts of adorable pastries for our afternoon tea. When I exercised in the gym, she would join me, sometimes trying a few couples workout poses, though always keeping just the right boundary, never crossing the line. Anna was also an excellent chess player. When my grandfather played to pass the time, she would step forward and challenge him for a few rounds. As the saying goes, chess reveals the person. Though Anna would sometimes let my grandfather take a few pieces, her moves were sharp yet fluid, airtight yet steady, always progressing toward victory. My grandfather couldn't help recalling how, when I encountered difficulties in Wang Corporation's affairs, Anna could always offer precise, effective solutions. At that moment, his gaze upon Anna grew even more profound. Chapter 7, The Truth. As the wedding day drew closer, I took Anna to pick up our wedding rings. We went straight to Tiffany. In City A's circle of the elite, Tiffany was a household name. Every piece of its custom jewelry was a masterpiece, and especially the diamond ring known as one can only ever give to one person in a lifetime. That ring was so popular it drew countless couples to it. A few days earlier, I had already custom ordered a ring based on Anna's finger size, and today we were here to pick it up. But just as we entered the store, we spotted Makoto, whom we hadn't seen in days. He was standing there, his eyes fixed on a jade pendant in the window. I heard this Buddha-head pendant can bring luck. My fortune hasn't been good lately. Maybe I've been targeted by petty people. Makoto muttered to himself. It's just a Buddha-head. If you like it, I'll buy it for you. Maria's voice came, filled with flattery. Willow, on the other hand, sneered disdainfully at the pendant. It's only a Buddha-head. Makoto, this Rolex suits you much better. Thank you, Willow. Maria, you're both so kind to me, Makoto replied, grinning, clearly basking in the attention. The three of them, truly, they were like lingering shadows. I cursed silently, intending to quietly avoid them. But just as I turned, Maria's sharp eyes caught me. George, what are you doing here? Maria asked, feigning surprise. What else would I be doing here? I replied coolly, my eyes betraying my impatience. Willow, dissatisfied with my attitude, immediately started scolding. George, didn't we already make it clear? As long as you apologize to Makoto, we'll let bygones be bygones. And now you bring this mute here, are you deliberately showing off in front of us? Her voice carried open provocation. At that, I couldn't help but laugh in disdain. I had already explained everything that day, yet they still thought I was in the wrong. Did they expect me to bow my head to Makoto and let them trample me? I did nothing wrong. Why should I apologize to him? I looked coldly at Willow, enunciating each word. And what do you mean by showing off? Do you really think you're worth me doing something so petty? My tone was firm, leaving no room for compromise. George, what do you mean by that? Both Willow and Maria snapped at once, their faces full of anger. Oh, so now you're bold enough to throw your attitude at us? Is it that mute whispering behind your back? A mute, and you still want her? Willow rattled on, her voice dripping with contempt. I sneered inwardly. I wasn't a fool to be manipulated at will. My IQ was 150. Otherwise, my grandfather would never have entrusted me with the Wang Corporation. All these years, I had obeyed them simply out of gratitude for their help when we were young, but that debt had already been repaid. I would no longer allow them to act with impunity. I've already warned you, she is my fiancée. You should treat her with respect. If you don't know how to respect people, I don't mind teaching you. My tone was ice cold, edged with threat. George, is this really necessary? I told you, we could just play that game again. This time I'll definitely get the turtle, Maria muttered jealously, unwilling to accept that I kept protecting Anna. Enough. I have no interest in your childish games, I snapped impatiently. If you want to pamper Makoto, find someone else. Don't bother me again. At my words, Willow's expression cracked slightly, her eyes widening in surprise. You knew. Willow's voice trembled. I sneered inwardly. Of course I knew. After my grandfather's birthday banquet, I had ordered the butler to investigate. I discovered that the whole idea had been Makoto's, and they had actually agreed to it. Such behavior was beyond despicable. It was also the final straw that severed any lingering ties I had with them. With my wedding to Anna just days away, I had no time to waste on them. So, I pulled Anna along and went straight to the staff handling our order. They led us into the Black Diamond VIP room before heading off to fetch our custom diamond ring. But just as we sat down, a commotion broke out outside the door. Chapter 8, Blind Eyes. My fault, ladies. I've already explained very clearly, this necklace was specially custom ordered by Mr. Wong. If you need one, we can make a new order, and it'll only take a few days. As for this set of necklace and wedding rings, I'm sorry, but we cannot sell them to you, the staff patiently explained. Not long after, Willow and Maria suddenly barged in, both asking with puzzled expressions, "Why are you buying a wedding ring? Why was I buying a wedding ring?" Did they really not know? Why pretend ignorance here? Even if they didn't want to believe my words, just by asking around, they could easily find out that the Wong family was in the midst of preparing my wedding in full swing. In the end, it was simply that they didn't care about me anymore. I already said it very clearly just now. My tone carried both helplessness and anger. Maria, who had been staring at me, suddenly seemed to think of something and laughed. "George, impossible. You must just be secretly buying a ring to give me a surprise, right?" Willow, however, sneered with disdain. "Since you ordered the necklace anyway, why not let Makoto try it on?" Makoto tugged at Willow's sleeve and whispered, "Willow, even if those are things George doesn't want, I don't deserve to wear them." Willow and Maria looked at him with pained affection. Willow then said to me directly, "George, you can't possibly wear so many pieces of jewelry. Just let Makoto pick one first." Maria was relatively gentler. "George, you won't be able to wear them all. Just spare one for Makoto." I looked at them coldly, a wave of disgust rising in my chest. How had I never realized before that these two could be so shameless? They were practically no different from robbers. Not to mention, these necklaces were women's pieces. Even if they weren't, why should I give them to an ingrate like Makoto? I paid to custom order these pieces. Why should I give them to him for free? The moment I said that, both Willow and Maria's faces darkened. "George, we're all human. Why do you look down on Makoto just because of his background?" Makoto was right, you're nothing but a snob, unwilling to spare even a necklace, though I had already lost all expectations of them. Seeing them shield Makoto to this extent, even discarding their basic decency, I couldn't help but laugh in anger. I'd sooner put these on a dog than give them to him, I retorted without hesitation. Makoto said nothing, but his eyes turned red. Willow and Maria immediately panicked, distressed on his behalf. "Don't be sad, Makoto. I'll buy all of these necklaces for you." Willow glared fiercely at me, then turned and told the staff to prepare the bill. At that moment, Makoto stepped toward me, raising his hand to show the ring on his finger. "Look, this ring was given to me by Willow. She said it can only ever be given to one person in a lifetime." He even removed the ring, holding it out so I could see the engraving inside, but I had already lost all interest in them. Seeing Makoto buzzing in front of me non-stop like a fly, blocking the space between Anna and me, and interfering with us trying on jewelry, I finally lost my patience. I raised my fist and punched Makoto. He staggered back several steps before regaining his footing, staring at me in shock, needing several moments to recover. Willow and Maria, realizing what had happened, immediately grabbed at me, demanding an apology. "George, you've gone too far. Apologize to Makoto right now." "Apologize? Apologize for what?" "I was wrong," I suddenly said, hearing me admit fault. Willow and Maria's expression softened slightly, but in the very next second, I turned the words around. "My fault was being blind. Forever knowing the two of you. Anna, let's go. This place is filthy. We don't need these things anymore." With that, I pulled Anna with me to leave, but Willow, spoiled and domineering as always, and seeing me constantly holding Anna's hand, rushed forward to block our path. "George, apologize to Makoto, or don't even think about leaving this store today." I looked calmly at Willow and Maria, who glared at me with furious eyes. "Whether I leave or not isn't for you to decide." Willow raised her hand, ready to slap me, but it was stopped. It was Anna. Her slender fingers gripped Willow's wrist firmly, and no matter how Willow struggled, she couldn't break free. Seeing this, Willow grew even more furious. "You're just a mute. No power. no status, and you dare meddle in our affairs? I'll beat you today and teach you a lesson about your place. As she lifted her other hand to strike Anna, my expression darkened sharply. I was about to push her away when the store manager arrived with security. They stopped Willow and then bowed respectfully in my and Anna's direction. Our young lady has given instructions. In this store, no jewelry will ever be sold to anyone except Mr. Wong. Chapter 9. You are not worthy. The manager cast a glance at Willow and the others, then immediately instructed the security guards. What are you all standing around for? Hurry and throw these troublemakers out. And you, what's the point of having you here? Our distinguished guests are being harassed, and you don't know enough to step in at once and resolve the problem. The manager snatched the shopping bag from Makoto's hand. Makoto was furious. You call this doing business? Why won't you sell to me? But the manager remained unmoved. At Tiffany, we do business as we please. Whoever offends Mr. Wong, we will drive out directly. Makoto's face twisted in anger, and he tried to save face by snapping. You think we actually care about your worthless junk? Willow, as a socialite, knew Tiffany's status very well. Her face darkened. Manager Marco, I ordered jewelry from you every year, and now you say you won't sell to me. Miss Liu, I'm sorry. Marco's tone was polite but firm as he ordered the three of them out. Willow still tried to argue. Manager Marco, who is this young lady of yours? As far as I remember, I've never offended her. Couldn't you let us meet her, to see if there's some misunderstanding? The manager cast a subtle glance at Anna beside him. Seeing her remain silent, his expression cooled, and he said faintly, You want to meet our young lady? You're not worthy. With that, he motioned for security to drive the three of them out. Once the farce ended and the eyesores were gone, the manager turned respectfully to Anna and reported, Miss, everything has been handled according to your instructions. I looked at Anna in shock. She turned out to be Tiffany's young lady, the one in charge of the entire brand. Perhaps seeing my surprise, Anna hurriedly signed an explanation. She hadn't meant to hide it from me. She wasn't really a waitress. That day, she had only put on a server's uniform to avoid some minor trouble. Unexpectedly, by a twist of fate, she ended up forming a bond with me. Hearing this, I felt relieved. After all, under the circumstances that day, an ordinary person truly wouldn't have been able to just slip into my grandfather's birthday banquet. Only, if that was the case, I knew Tiffany was a century-old family enterprise. Naturally, Anna couldn't possibly be without family. With our wedding drawing near, both emotionally and properly, I should first visit her parents. Yet, a fleeting shadow crossed Anna's eyes, and she quickly signed that her marriage was her own decision. I didn't need to visit her family. Her resolute stance made it clear she was hiding something, but I didn't press further. Instead, I simply squeezed her fingers and said, We'll do as you wish. Then, I slowly let go. Because of the earlier farce, I no longer wanted the wedding rings and necklaces we had originally chosen, so I decided to order new ones. Together, we selected fresh rings and gifts for the bride from the catalog. After taking the measurements, the manager smiled and said, Once they're completed, we'll deliver them directly to your residence. But just before we returned home, Anna told me she would temporarily be leaving the Wong residence. She wanted to return first and prepare herself as a bride-to-be. Then, she handed me an address. I glanced at it. It was in the city's most expensive, land-like gold estate district. In that moment, I couldn't help but feel that Anna's background was far deeper than I had imagined. Chapter 10. Her background. When I returned alone to the villa, my grandfather was already waiting in the living room. Seeing me somewhat dazed and by myself, he seemed to guess something and said, Come to the study. As soon as we entered, he asked, Why did you come back alone? Where's Anna? I raised my hand, instinctively wanting to use sign language, but then remembered it was my grandfather in front of me. So I said aloud, She went back to her own home first. My grandfather's expression dimmed slightly at that. Anne, will she come back? I froze for a moment. Grandpa, what do you mean? She only said she went home to prepare for the wedding. Is there something wrong with Anna's identity? So, you've noticed as well. In the study, my grandfather walked slowly, his expression unusually heavy and solemn. I won't hide it from you. From the beginning, I felt Anna wasn't an ordinary person, so I secretly investigated her background. All I could find was that she went abroad when she was very young, and only returned a month ago. As for what happened today at Tiffany, I heard about it too. Do you think the power behind Tiffany could belong to just some ordinary wealthy family? And indeed, that was also the unease I had always felt. Grandfather continued, The most important thing is this, aside from vague records of when she went abroad and when she returned, nothing else could be found. Nothing at all. There are only two possible reasons for this. 1. Anna truly is an orphan, with no family behind her. But clearly, that's not the case. That leaves the other possibility. Her background is far deeper than anything I can imagine or reach. Her identity must have been deliberately concealed. That's why no trace of her can be found. I looked at my grandfather in shock. Even though I had now inherited the Wang Corporation, I had always regarded my grandfather as the ultimate authority, not only out of filial piety, but also because in this circle, his status and ability carried immense weight. Yet now, even he couldn't find anything. Then Anna's identity. Seeing the flicker of confusion on my face, and recalling everything Anna and I had experienced together these past days, my grandfather knew our feelings for each other were genuine. He patted my shoulder and said the old words. Anna is a good child. You know the ancestral rule of the Wang family. We do not annul marriages because of a complicated background. The only concern is if Anna cannot make her own decisions about marriage. If that happens, our Wang family may not even be qualified to marry her. If the Su family blocked the marriage, the Wang family would be powerless. I knew my grandfather spoke only out of concern for me. The bones of my hand clenched so tightly that they turned pale. Yet I still nodded firmly. I understand, Grandpa. That night, I couldn't sleep a wink. The next morning, I rose early to continue preparing for the wedding. After all, Anna had said it herself, her marriage was her own choice. And even if, in the end, things turned out otherwise, I still didn't want to give up. I still wanted to try. 3 days later, I finally had everything prepared. Just then, a servant walked in carrying a flower pot and asked me, "Young master, this peony hasn't been watered for a long time. It's dead." I looked at the snow tower white peony Willow had once given me. I used to water it personally, but recently, with all the chaos Willow and Maria had caused, I hadn't paid it any attention. The peony had withered and died. Perhaps, our relationship was like this flower, already consumed and drained away, dying bit by bit. Throw it away. The words had barely left my mouth when I turned around and met Willow's furious face. "George, is this how you treat my token of affection?" I frowned, glancing at Willow, Makoto, and Maria. These three, did they really think the Wang residence was a marketplace? "Butler, what are you standing there for? Get them out of here. And if stray cats and dogs are ever allowed in again, then you all won't need to stay here either." I rarely spoke so harshly to the butler, but Willow and the others knew very well, those words were really directed at them. Willow panicked, stepped forward quickly, and pulled out a pair of rings, trying to shove one into my hand. "We came especially to give you these couple rings. Don't drive us out." But I avoided her hand as though it carried a plague. My eyes filled only with cold indifference. "Those rings, give them to whoever you like." George, don't care. I'll say it again, now, immediately. Get out. My voice rose, carrying an unmistakable threat. Maria and Willow exchanged a panicked glance, unwillingness and fear flashing in their eyes, just about to speak again. At that moment, my mother appeared, smiling brightly. "George, look who's here." I turned my head. Behind her stood Tiffany's manager, and beside him, a young woman in a beige dress, pure and refined. Her makeup was light, her waterfall-like hair draping over her shoulders. She looked like a fairy descending to earth, dazzling in her presence. My heart stirred slightly. She looked familiar, yet I couldn't recall where I had seen her before. "This is Anna, your fiancée. Don't tell me you can't recognize her just because she changed clothes." My mother chuckled from the side. "But truly, when I first saw her just now, even I was stunned. She's beautiful, whether in simple dress or with elegance." Hearing the name Anna, I finally dared to set my gaze fully upon her. Chapter 11, Insignificant People. The Anna I remembered was as simple and pure as a white flower, yet at this moment, she was radiant like a luminous pearl. Thinking about how we hadn't seen each other for 3 days, an inexplicable wave of emotion rose within me. I couldn't help but take a step forward, wanting to be closer to her. Anna felt the same, but when her eyes fell on Willow and the others, a trace of tension flashed across them. She asked in sign language, "Why are they here?" "They're insignificant people. You don't need to bother with them," I replied indifferently. Then, I asked Anna, "And you, did you come here especially to see me?" Before Anna could respond, it was Tiffany's manager who spoke up. "Didn't you recently reorder the wedding gown, rings, and other items? Both the bride's and groom's sets are ready, so I brought them over for you to try." I hadn't expected the manager to know sign language, but thinking of the respectful way he treated Anna, it made sense. Learning sign language must have been his way to better attend to her. Afterward, my gaze swept casually toward Willow and the others, and my lips curved into a cold smile. According to the original schedule, tomorrow is the day of the formal betrothal visit. What do you think? The manager's words were partly about procedure, but mostly meant to be overheard by Willow and her companions. In truth, even if the Wang family really went for the formal visit, it would only be a formality. The Su family had no need for betrothal offerings from the Wangs. After all, in this world, the number of families wealthier than the Su family could be counted on one hand. Upon hearing this, my mother immediately pulled out a finely bound book from her bag and handed it to Anna. Chapter 12, The Aura of the Wang Family's Madam. Anna, although you said before that the Wang family didn't need to prepare anything, and that holding the wedding on schedule would be enough. The formalities still have to be observed. Auntie has prepared a dowry. Take a look first, and if anything is missing, I'll add more. As my mother spoke, she opened the exquisitely bound book in her hands. The moment it was opened, photos of various pieces of jewelry and ornaments filled the pages. Among them were rare treasures bought at high prices in auctions, as well as heirlooms passed down through the Wang family for generations, items so precious that outsiders rarely even had a chance to see them. In addition, there were also several share transfer documents, numbering in the hundreds, so many that the thick book was almost too heavy for one hand to hold. Standing to the side, I understood perfectly. My mother was essentially offering half the Wang family to Anna, but I didn't feel the slightest reluctance. After all, Anna would be my family in the future. Letting her see these things now was merely giving her an advance look at what already belonged to her. Naturally, Anna realized the value of these betrothal gifts and was just about to decline them when Willow suddenly snatched the book from her and exclaimed, her voice trembling, "Auntie, are you really handing over the entire Wang family to her? She's just a mute. Has the Wang family lost its mind?" Maria added, in a more tactful tone, "Auntie, are you truly going to let a mute marry into the Wang family? The whole country will laugh at you. How about this? Keep the wedding as planned, but on the day, just switch her out for me. Say that she refused to marry." Before she could finish, smack, the crisp sound of a slap rang out. My mother had slapped Maria hard across the face. While everyone was still stunned, she spoke firmly, "As an elder, I normally shouldn't raise a hand against you, but the words you just spoke, those aren't words fit for a human being." She yanked the bound book back from Willow's hands and warned coldly, "Let me make this clear. Anna is my daughter-in-law, the only daughter-in-law I recognize for the Wang family. Even if Anna decided she didn't want George, and refused to marry him, George would rather stay single his whole life than marry either of you. So I advise you, give up on this idea. If either of you dare to call my daughter-in-law mute again, every single time you say it, I will slap you again." As she spoke, she raised her hand once more, deliberately showing off the sharp new manicure she had just gotten. Maria, her face burning hotly from the slap, though not bleeding, understood that Madame Wang had already shown restraint. Covering her face quickly, she dared not make another sound. Willow, too, flushed with embarrassment but didn't dare speak again. It was Makoto, instead, who opened his mouth, as if to mediate. "Auntie, shut up." My mother's eyes turned on him, filled with naked contempt. "And who do you think you are? What right does a two-faced ingrate like you have to speak here? Every word I waste on you shortens my life. Butler, throw these eyesores out immediately. And from now on, they are never to set foot in this house again. I won't have the Wang family's doors dirted." In her younger years, my mother had been a force in the circles of wealthy women. Now, her authority had only grown more formidable. The Tiffany manager had clearly heard of her reputation. Watching her protect Anna so fiercely, he finally allowed himself to relax. Meanwhile, my mother had already taken Anna by the hand, leading her inside as if she were her own daughter, or even her sister. "Let me tell you, I've never liked those 3 kids. You can just see the bad in them from a mile away. Anna, your hands are so beautiful, perfect for manicures, but your natural nails are pink and glossy. It'd be a shame to damage them with polish. My friends told me about nail stickers. One day, I'll take you, and we'll pick some together. And your hair, how do you keep it so smooth and shiny?" "Don't worry, I studied sign language for a whole week. Even if you sign slowly, I can understand you." "Oh, you're saying you made your own shampoo?" Behind them, I exchanged a look with the manager. His smile was genuine, but mine carried a trace of helplessness. I feel like I've already lost my mother's favor. When I was little and refused to speak for years, she never bothered to learn sign language. She always said that when I wanted to speak, I would naturally open my mouth. The manager knew I wasn't truly resentful. He only smiled lightly, but thinking about Anna's silence, he seemed on the verge of saying something, yet in the end, he held back. After all, some things should only be told when his lady herself was ready. Chapter 13, An unexpected turn in the engagement. After my mother and the manager left, Anna and I finally had space to be alone. I remembered my grandfather's earlier advice and slowly sat down in front of Anna. Speaking to her in sign language, I candidly mentioned my past struggle with autism and the risk of relapse in the future. I also expressed my concerns about her identity, worried that her parents might mind such a matter. Anna, sensing my unease, gently took my hand and gave me a firm, reassuring response. Over these days, George's unwavering protection and affection for her had only strengthened her certainty that she had chosen the right person. So she signed to me, "My parents know about you." In fact, long before George even knew her name, she had already mentioned him to her parents in the Sue family. "They approve of us being together. They're just traveling around the world right now, but they're already on their way back. On our wedding day, you'll be able to meet them. Don't worry, everything will go smoothly that day." Hearing this, The heavy stone in my heart finally settled. I looked at Anna with gratitude and then threw myself fully into preparing for the wedding. The betrothal ceremony the next day naturally went smoothly, and 3 days later, it was our wedding day. Ever since the day after my grandfather's birthday banquet, when he publicly announced that I would soon marry, nearly half a month had passed. The news had spread like wildfire, and the wedding had become the city's most anticipated event, dominating the trending lists for days. To show their regard for Anna, the Wang family spared no expense, booking the most luxurious hotel in the city. The scale of the wedding was among the grandest the city had ever seen. Early that morning, I personally went to the Su family to pick Anna up and head together to the hotel. The luxury motorcade attracted countless onlookers. Anna and I tossed out candies to the crowd, sharing our joy with everyone. But when I turned my head, I unexpectedly spotted Willow and Maria among the people. They had come to watch the spectacle. Willow and Maria mingled in with the crowd, picking up candies. But when they realized the groom was George, their faces instantly turned pale. This time, the Wang family had prepared not only traditional sweets but also small gold nuggets mixed in with the candies. The sight made the crowd surge forward, scrambling to grab them, and the scene quickly turned chaotic. Suddenly, Willow seemed to lose all reason, forcing her way frantically through the crowd, trying to reach the wedding car. "George, George," she shouted. Maria was also shoved about miserably. Normally so careful about her image, she now had no time to worry about her hair being pulled into a mess. Hearing Willow's desperate cries, Maria finally snapped back to herself, shaking her head in disbelief. How could this be? Why is George really marrying that mute? It was only a joke. I simply drew my gaze back, dismissing the disturbance as a meaningless interlude. I had already declared my intentions many times, that I would marry Anna. Yet they had been far too confident, or perhaps still believed I was their puppet to toy with as they pleased. Even if I resisted occasionally, they never thought I would truly break free of their control. That was why they ignored my words again and again. But just when the motorcade was only 10 minutes from the hotel, the driver suddenly slammed the brakes and stopped the car. Chapter 14, Actions Match Words. I quickly supported Anna, my gaze sharp. "What's going on?" The driver's expression was grim, pointing ahead. "Mr. Wang, the eldest miss of the Liu family has blocked the road with her convoy." I lowered the car window and looked out, only to see Willow and Maria waiting there aggressively. Their cars were scattered across the road, blocking the way, horns blaring chaotically. Willow and Maria strode straight toward me, ignoring the noise around them. Willow yanked the door open, urgently grabbing at me. "George, how can you marry someone else?" Maria, however, was much shrewder. She turned directly to Anna, her words dripping with disdain. "You're just a waitress, and mute at that. You and George don't even live in the same world. Don't think a silly bet makes you his wife. Get out of the car, now." I flung Willow's hand away and demanded, "It was you two who forced me to draw lots to pick a wife. Now that I've chosen, you're dissatisfied." Willow cried out anxiously. "George, that was just a game. How could you take it seriously? I know you're angry with us. I already got the ring back from Makoto. From now on, that ring belongs only to you." Willow reached out again as she spoke, but I shoved her hand away once more. "Save your efforts. I'm marrying Anna today. If you try to stop us again, don't blame me for being harsh." At my words, Willow seemed to lose all reason, screaming, "It must be that mute forcing you. Right, I'll throw her out right now." She lunged to grab Anna. I shielded Anna firmly behind me. Willow and Maria couldn't even touch the hem of her clothes. Maria's eyes welled up as she looked at me, aggrieved. "George, you used to protect us." I gave a cold laugh, my thoughts drifting back to the past. Back then, the three of us, Willow, Maria, and I, were close, and I always stood at the front, shielding them from the storm. But gradually, they seemed to forget that I was flesh and blood too, capable of being hurt. Now, they were simply upset that their free bodyguard had chosen someone else, especially someone they looked down on as just a waitress. That was all it was, their bruised pride. Thinking this, my gaze toward them grew even colder. "I told you before, I have nothing more to do with you, so you'd better not even appear in front of me. I don't want my wife to feel unsafe or upset. No, you can't marry her." Seeing that I was determined, Willow screamed hysterically. She threw away all pretense and blocked the wedding car. "If you want to go to the hotel, you'll have to drive over my corpse." Watching Willow's shameless act, I clenched my fists. Was she really going to ruin the most important day of my life? I roared. "Didn't you consider this outcome when you dragged Anna into the lot drawing?" Willow shuddered, as if realizing something. "It's because of your Wang family's ancestral rule of actions matching words, isn't it? That's why you're marrying her." I gave Anna a reassuring look before turning back to Willow and Maria, my voice icy. "If Anna and I cancel the wedding, I'll be breaking the ancestral rule and expelled from the Wang family. Then I'll be nothing but a penniless man. Would you still want to marry me then?" The fiery aura that Willow and Maria carried faltered. They exchanged glances, momentarily speechless. Soon, Willow spoke again, but her voice had lost its confidence. Of course we would. Chapter 15. She made her move. Enough. I cut off Willow's entanglement with an icy tone. Your silence just now already gave me the answer. I stared directly at Willow and Maria, my voice heavy with disappointment and anger. You always defended Makoto, but only because of his looks. And now, when I'm in the same position as Makoto once was, you keep silent. That alone proves you only want to control me, as if controlling the young master of the Wong family could give you more prestige in your social circle. My words were like sharp blades, piercing straight into their weak spots. A flicker of embarrassment crossed Willow and Maria's faces, confirming that I was right. Yet Willow still tried to struggle. She gripped my hand tightly, her eyes pleading. George, I truly love you. If you care about the ancestral rules, it doesn't matter. You can just say it was me who drew the turtle that day. I should be the one marrying you. At her words, I only sneered. Back at the Wong family villa, when Maria suggested the same thing, she got slapped across the face. Looks like that slap hadn't landed on Willow, or else she wouldn't have forgotten so soon. Just as I was thinking this, a crisp smack rang out, and a bright red handprint bloomed on Willow's cheek. That was when I realized Anna had already stepped in front of Willow, her gaze cold and ruthless. The manager behind Anna translated, "This slap is the debt you owed George. I've collected it on his behalf." Willow, don't you see how ridiculous you are? When George liked you, you didn't cherish it. Instead, you trampled his feelings. And now, what gives you the right to block the wedding car? On what basis can you stop this wedding? You don't deserve George's kindness. Willow turned her head in disbelief. You, a waitress, dared to hit me. She stormed forward to pull at Anna, but both the manager and I shielded Anna firmly. It turned out Willow had even brought bodyguards to sabotage the wedding procession. Fortunately, Anna was well prepared and had brought plenty of people. Her side completely overpowered Willow's guards, subduing them one by one. Then, the bodyguards shoved Willow and Maria to the roadside and smashed their cars to pieces. Willow screamed in fury, "That Bentley cost me over $1 million. Anna, you bitch. You dared to smash my car. I'll make sure you lose everything you own." Anna calmly signed back, "Since I dared to smash it, I don't care about such petty money. You used your cars to block George from marrying me, so of course I'll clear the obstacles for him." Willow glared at Anna's commanding presence. "You're just a waitress. How dare you?" Anna gripped my arm tightly, her eyes unwavering. "As long as George is willing to marry me, I'll find endless courage for him." Seeing this, Maria seemed to finally understand the situation and quickly echoed, "George, we know you're not marrying this woman willingly. As long as you don't go through with it, we're willing to apologize to Grandpa and everyone else together with you. Drawing lots for a wife was just a game. Don't throw away your lifetime of happiness over a game." Willow snapped back to her senses and hurriedly added, "Yes, George, it's fine if you won't marry me, but you can't just rush into marriage like this." Their tactic had shifted. Now they claimed it was all for my sake. But Anna, silently clutching my arm, trembled ever so slightly. She seemed nervous. All eyes were on me, waiting for my decision. I took a deep breath, slid my arm free from Anna's grip, only to intertwine my fingers with hers. Her palm was damp, a thin sheen of sweat coating it. When I finally spoke, her body trembled even harder. "I will never abandon Anna." Anna's expression shifted from shock to disappointment, and finally froze in delight. Chapter 16. The Wedding. Gently, I tucked a loose strand of hair behind Anna's ear and whispered softly, "I'll never forget the day of Grandpa's grand birthday celebration. When you stood up to protect me, and also when we drew lots for a wife, you never wavered, always standing by my side. Now, no matter what anyone says, I won't leave you to face everything alone." At these words, Willow seemed to lose her mind, or perhaps, what she couldn't have, she would rather destroy. She suddenly turned toward Anna, her smile twisted and sinister. "Don't get too smug. George is only marrying you because of the Wong family's ancestral rule. He doesn't love you. A marriage without love is doomed to misery." Hearing that, I raised Anna's hand in front of everyone, planting a deep kiss on the back of it, my voice loud and firm. "My marriage to Anna is not only fate's arrangement but also the meeting of our souls. Her talent, her character, her kindness, and her integrity, they've all captivated me. I love her, with unshakable devotion, until death." Anna's smile blossomed. She clung to my arm and silently mouthed, "I love you too." Our eyes locked, filled with emotion, before we turned away together. Behind us, Willow and Maria, realizing the ending was sealed, broke down in tears, crying and begging me not to leave. With the obstacles cleared, the wedding car soon arrived at the hotel. To my surprise, the entrance was filled with powerful business tycoons, gathered from all corners of the world. Clearly, they had come for Anna. Not only did these magnates attend, but they also stood respectfully outside the hotel to welcome us. Upon seeing Anna, their expressions softened with warmth and kindness, as if gazing upon their own child. Then, their eyes turned to me, though they observed carefully. Their manner felt natural, without the slightest trace of disdain. Sensing my slight stiffness, Anna gently squeezed my arm, her eyes telling me, "Today, you are the groom. Today, the stage belongs to you." I drew in a deep breath, steadied my heart, and walked with Anna onto the red carpet. On the way to the grand wedding hall, I caught whispers among the guests revealing the Su family's background. It turned out Anna was the daughter of the Su family, one of the 4 great and mysterious clans of Huaxia. The Su family was low profile yet awe-inspiring, with wealth to rival nations. I thought back to my childhood, when my own family's fortune nearly brought disaster upon me, and I instantly understood the Su family's modesty and Anna's humility. I realized that I wasn't marrying Anna because of her family background, but because of her virtue and talent. With that thought, my demeanor grew even more natural and at ease. So when I met Anna's parents in the wedding hall, I carried myself with respect and composure. The Su parents, in turn, were very pleased with me. They knew George was a capable young man, and even more valuable, a kind-hearted one from a family with integrity. Most importantly, Anna and George had shared many years of deep affection. At that moment, as George and Anna signed to each other in front of them, they saw the tenderness and patience in his eyes. Just as manager Marco had reported, George truly didn't despise Anna for her silence. On the contrary, the Su parents' gaze toward George grew all the more filled with affection. But, Chapter 17, Su father's recognition. When Mr. Su placed Anna Su's hand into mine, he said, "If Anna hadn't set her heart on marrying you, I would have insisted on testing you a bit longer. Young man, from now on you must treat my daughter well." Then he turned to the guests and made his recognition of me public. "From today on, George is my Su family's son-in-law. As the saying goes, a son-in-law is half a son. That makes George part of the Su family now." Everyone present was shrewd enough to understand the meaning behind Mr. Su's words. Immediately, they began addressing me as one of their juniors. Catching Anna's eye, I smiled teasingly at her. "Does this mean I've basked in the Su family's glory, and from now on I'll rise along with it?" Anna, blushing, lightly tapped my chest before explaining. She was the youngest child of the Su family, deeply cherished from birth, but because she was unable to speak as a child, her parents spent more than a decade abroad seeking treatment for her. She had only returned to the country a month ago. I was about to ask her why she suddenly came back, when a stream of guests arrived to toast me, so I lifted my glass temporarily instead. Although many came forward since I was the groom, they also knew I had important matters ahead that night. They showed restraint, letting me sip lightly rather than forcing heavy drinking. So by the time the banquet ended and the guests had left one after another, I was only slightly tipsy, still clear-headed. Mr. and Mrs. Su remained until the end, while Anna stayed with her mother in heartfelt conversation. Mr. Su gave me a look, leading me aside to talk. He asked directly, "Before marrying Anna, did you already know about her identity?" I did not hide it. My grandfather noticed Anna's outstanding qualities and suspected she wasn't from an ordinary family. Worried the Wang family wasn't worthy of her, he secretly investigated, but nothing was found. Still, both he and I believed Anna's background was far beyond what our Wang family could ever match. I didn't mention that I had often proposed visiting the Su parents beforehand, but Anna had always refused. At my words, Mr. Su studied me for a moment, his gaze holding a glimmer of satisfaction. This was an honest young man. Yet he asked again, "Now that you know, what do you think?" I froze for a moment, not fully catching his meaning. Then I said, "If the Su family doesn't oppose my being with Anna, then what difference does her background make to us?" Though Mr. Su's expression remained calm, his eyes seemed to strip away every layer of me. Only then did I truly feel the crushing pressure of one standing at the very top of the pyramid. But my gaze stayed open and steady, not dodging in the slightest. After several seconds, that immense pressure gradually lifted, and Mr. Su's face even softened with a warm smile as he said, "If you ever encounter something you cannot resolve, let Anna contact me." Finally, he could rest easy, fully entrusting Anna to George. Later, the Su parents declined my offer to arrange anything for them, choosing instead to continue their travels around the world. Anna seemed long accustomed to this. She simply held my hand and went back with me to our bridal chamber. As I helped Anna remove the ornaments from her hair, I recalled my earlier question and asked again, "Why did you suddenly return to the country?" And in truth, I had always wondered, with Anna's qualities, she could have found a far more suitable match, so why had she chosen me? Chapter 18. From now on, I'll protect you. Anna lowered her head, held my hand, and drew a smiley face in my palm. I froze for a moment before suddenly realizing. I remembered. Years ago, during a business trip abroad, I once saw a group of people mocking a waitress. They called her mute, bullied her because she stayed silent, and even whispered about dragging her off to a hotel. I couldn't stand it and picked a fight with them under some excuse. When I looked up, I realized that the waitress had been watching from the side the whole time. To comfort her, I drew a smiley face on the glass window, hoping she could stay happy every day. I never expected that girl to be Anna, and that she would remember it for so long. Anna said, "From that day on, I kept doing part-time jobs, hoping that one day I could find you. My illness hadn't been cured, so I hadn't planned on returning home. But when my parents mentioned someone named George who sounded just like you, I flew back specially to see. That day, I happened to run into trouble, and I put on a waitress uniform. When I saw you, I thought you'd remember me, but instead, I ran into that scene. They were so cruel. How could they treat you that way?" Seeing Anna indignantly standing up for me in such a cute way, my heart melted. I gently hugged her, feeling a little guilty. "I truly didn't recognize you before, mainly because you've become even more beautiful than back then. With you by my side now, I'll never be bullied again." Anna nodded firmly, her gaze sincere. "From now on, I'll protect you." I couldn't help but smile. Kissing Anna on the forehead, she shyly buried herself into my arms. I thought she had been frightened and worried that my action had been too abrupt, so I quickly apologized. But Anna immediately cupped my face and kissed me on the lips. Stunned, I kissed her back, deepening the kiss. On our wedding night, we barely slept at all. Our souls were in perfect harmony, making us cherish each other even more. After marriage, Anna refused to leave my side. She didn't want to continue treatment abroad, so I spent a fortune to bring her previous specialist over to China to keep treating her. Anna lived a quiet and private life in the Wang family home. Knowing she disliked banquets, I chose to accompany her more. I rarely attended social gatherings unless they were unavoidable, and even then, I only showed up briefly. One day, a business partner invited me to the Jasmine Pavilion to discuss details of a collaboration. The name itself sounded refined, so I didn't think much of it. After telling Anna, I went as agreed. The private room was filled with an antique fragrance and atmosphere. After settling the business details, my partner's phone rang. He took the call, then excused himself to step out, saying he had something urgent and asked me to wait there. I glanced at the array of desserts on the table and asked a waiter for a menu, wanting to choose some to bring back for Anna's taste. So I stayed behind. While I was selecting, a wisp of gauze suddenly appeared in front of me. I looked up to see a sensuous woman dressed in the style of ancient courtesans, slowly walking toward me. I frowned slightly, for she wore a veil and I couldn't see who she was. I was just about to ask if she had entered the wrong room, when the woman swayed gracefully and began dancing a seductive dance in front of me. Chapter 19, Digging One's Own Grave. My mind went blank for an instant with a buzzing sound, but soon a spark of fury ignited as I roared. "Who sent you here, manager?" "He. That so-called business partner from earlier." The woman said nothing, only moving closer and closer, deliberately letting the veil on her body slip down bit by bit, her seduction all too obvious. Just as her delicate hand reached toward me, I grabbed a cushion from the sofa and hurled it at her with full force. Even though she hadn't touched me, I instantly tore off my suit jacket and tossed it straight into the trash can, my eyes full of undisguised disgust. Struck and now met with my gaze as if she were a contagious disease. The woman froze in shock. I raised my hand, showing her the ring on my finger, and barked harshly. "I'm married. Even if I weren't, I would never get involved with a woman like you. Now get out, immediately." Hearing the words, "a woman like you," she assumed I had mistaken her for someone working in that kind of trade. She quickly pulled away her veil, revealing Willow's face. "George, it's me." Perhaps it was because she had never obtained me that she remained so obsessed. Or maybe she had never truly looked at me carefully before. Since our ugly falling out on my wedding day, she hadn't stopped thinking about me. Now, seeing me again, she suddenly realized that George really was handsome. Handsome in the way of aged wine, rich, deep, and refined. In contrast, Makoto's good looks were superficial, like chewing gum that lost its flavor the longer one tasted it. No wonder. All these years, both she and Maria could never forget about George. She had never understood this before, but now that she did, he was already married. Still, she thought, it didn't matter. With all their years of entanglement, she refused to believe that George could resist her when she was being so forward. With that thought, she softened her voice and stepped closer. "George, it's been so long. I missed you." From my initial shock at seeing her, my emotions quickly shifted to rage. "Willow, how many times have I said it? There is nothing between us anymore. You knew perfectly well I'm married, and you still dared to do this. What do you take me for? Some unfaithful beast who can't control himself?" Though the room was filled with sweet incense, my stomach churned with disgust. Bile rose in my throat. I couldn't stay another second. I turned to leave, but Willow's eyes suddenly gleamed with malice, and she lunged forward to throw herself at me. She hadn't even touched me when I kicked her to the ground with full force. Rage consumed me. "Who gave you permission to touch me? Willow, you disgust me, you're filthy." As I spat the words, I recalled the earlier behavior of that so-called business partner. It was obvious, Willow's presence today wasn't an accident. He had known beforehand and even aided her. At once, I pulled out my phone and called him, declaring that our deal was cancelled and that I would never cooperate with his company again. More than that, I vowed that every company allied with the Wang family would blacklist his firm permanently. In other words, I had just destroyed him in the business world. On the other end of the line, the partner panicked and rushed to explain, but I had already hung up and blocked him. Chapter 20, The Nation's Husband. Willow, lying on the ground, saw how ruthless George had been. She thought of how humbly she had tried to reconcile, only to be met with such an ending. Completely collapsing, she screamed, "So you really like that Anna so much, or is it because of her family background?" On George's wedding day, Willow had already heard rumors of Anna's family, though not clearly. She knew, however, that Anna's background actually surpassed even that of the Wang family. That only fueled her unwillingness to accept reality. So what if the Su family is rich? Our Lu family could also be your support. Anna Su is just a mute, she can't even be taken out to events. A woman who only circles around the house all day. What future could she possibly have? So this was what she thought could defeat Anna and win me over. I was so furious I laughed, leaving aside the fact that Anna is outstanding in every way. Even if she were just an ordinary girl, as long as she is my wife, I will cherish her and remain faithful to her. Isn't that the most basic principle between partners, the very difference between a human being and an animal? Just because you don't respect love doesn't mean everyone else is like you. With that, I didn't spare another glance at Willow's pale, broken face, and strode out, but outside the door, I met a pair of smiling eyes. Anna had clearly been there for a while. I quickly explained the entire situation to her. Anna listened quietly. We had agreed from the start to be a couple who spoke openly, explaining things clearly to one another and never leaving room for suspicion. When I finished and finally breathed a sigh of relief, Anna signed with a smile. It was Willow who messaged me to come. I knew she was trying to provoke me, but I trust you. I was sure she'd end up digging her own grave, so I actually came to watch her make a fool of herself. Seeing her slightly smug expression, more playful than usual, I couldn't help stepping forward to embrace her. Wife, it's wonderful to have found someone who resonates with me so completely. Anna, of course, understood my deeper meaning. Though she rarely stepped outside, she was always aware of the rumors swirling around me. The wealthy bosses and spoiled young men around me were all self-indulgent. Unable to tolerate my self-restraint, they tried to drag me down with them, to indulge in the same drunken and debauched life. But I always rejected them firmly, so they began spreading rumors, calling me pretentious, or mocking me as a clueless fool. Some even fabricated lies, claiming I was incompetent as a man. Though these baseless accusations disgusted me, I held fast to my principles. To me, loyalty was as natural and simple as breathing, yet just as essential, and Anna was the one who truly understood me. At our core, we were the same kind of people. But the matter didn't end there. That resentful business partner, seeking revenge, began spreading vile rumors. They claimed I wasn't as clean as I seemed, that my private life was actually depraved. They said I only cancelled the deal and blacklisted his company because I'd been rejected from an indecent establishment. People love gossip, especially when it flips appearances upside down. The story spread like wildfire, shooting straight to the trending lists. But just as the rumors were about to spiral out of control, a video emerged that turned everything on its head. It was footage from the Jasmine Pavilion's private room, showing someone attempting to seduce me, and me sternly rejecting her. Once released, the Jasmine Pavilion issued a statement confirming the video's authenticity. The woman was indeed brought in by the business partner, not affiliated with the pavilion. They revealed that he had failed to lure me and then tried to smear me with lies. At the same time, my friends and partners stepped forward to speak for me, listing countless examples of my conduct, proving I was indeed a rare clean stream in muddy waters. In an instant, my image was not only restored but elevated. The words I had spoken in that private room spread widely. Whenever someone repeated the old saying, "All men are the same," or "Every man makes mistakes," there would always be voices countering with, "George isn't like that." And so, I became the model of the nation's husband, and a benchmark for male virtue. Chapter 21, Meeting Again. In my heart I knew clearly, it was Anna who had quietly handled those troublesome matters behind the scenes. She was always like this, silently sweeping obstacles out of my way, making me treasure this heavenly gift even more. That day, I planned to take her to buy some furniture in her favorite blue, to decorate our home. We went to the best Tiffany furniture center in the city. The moment Anna stepped through the doors of Tiffany, the manager eagerly welcomed her. "Miss, whatever you like, I'll have it delivered straight to your home." Before I could answer on her behalf, a sharp cry rang out nearby. "You can't treat me like this. I have money, I'll pay it back." Turning my head, I saw Makoto surrounded by several burly men, shouting at the top of his lungs. The manager hurried to explain. That one's a deadbeat debtor. Used to bring rich women here, buy things and then return them. For a long time we didn't check too closely, but when we finally did, every item he returned was a counterfeit. We sent people to collect the debt, but he kept stalling. It's been a real headache for us. I intended to avoid the mess and take Anna away, but Makoto spotted me instantly, like a rabid dog. He rushed over and clutched my leg, wailing, "George, please save Willow. Her family is about to force her into an arranged marriage. She's sacrificing herself to keep you from falling into ruin. I don't have enough money to save her. George, I know you hate me, but you can't just abandon Willow. Please, lend me some money to rescue her." Hearing this, I was baffled. Willow in an arranged marriage? What did that have to do with borrowing money from me? Besides, wasn't an arranged marriage actually a good thing for Willow? Anna, soft-hearted, had never exposed Willow for what happened at the Jasmine Pavilion, already saving her face. With Willow's temperament, she'd eventually let Makoto coax her into marrying him. But could Makoto ever afford to support her? An arranged marriage at least guaranteed her a lifetime of comfort. Seeing me unmoved, Makoto grew frantic, shouting loud enough for everyone to hear, "You can't just forget your old love because you have a new one." That one sentence instantly drew the crowd's attention. Look at him, dressed all proper, but he's a heartless scumbag. He's on his knees, must be suffering some grave injustice. At the comments, I sneered coldly, "You want to borrow money? Is it really for Willow, or for your gambling habit?" Makoto froze, then stammered defensively, "Of course it's for Willow. I didn't mean to gamble, it was for her. I wanted her to live better. That's why I gambled." "So that's why you seduced so many women, made them pay for you, and pawned off counterfeits as real. That's what you call ensuring Willow's happiness." The word gambling turned the crowd against him in an instant. Gamblers are born liars. And he even dared to slander others. How vile. The manager stepped forward at just the right moment, casting a glance around before adding, "And he had the nerve to defame our nation's husband. He deserves every bit of this." The nation's husband. The crowd had, of course, heard of the name, but I kept a low profile, and few photos of me existed online. Now, seeing me in person, all eyes fixed on me. So this is the nation's husband. Such righteous elegance. He really does live up to the name. As they swarmed around me like fans, someone suddenly shouted, "That gambler's trying to run." The crowd instantly remembered, surrounding him and shouting angrily, "How dare you bite back like a rabid dog and slander the nation's husband? Don't you know he's a true friend of women? It's because of him that I believe in men again, in love, in marriage. He's my dream, my emotional support. Anyone who tries to shatter that is as good as a murderer. You deserve death." In moments, Makoto was beaten black and blue, fleeing in disgrace, and right then, I realized, my steadfastness, and the Wang family's fidelity to marriage, truly held profound meaning. Afterward, Anna and I finished selecting our furniture and went home. I thought no more of the matter, but the next morning, upon waking, I discovered that a video of Makoto calling me a scumbag had already hit the trending list. Chapter 22, Forgiveness with Cameras. The video had been cut and spliced, seemingly manipulated behind the scenes. So some clueless netizens, relying only on fragments, quickly branded me a scumbag. Makoto had a decent face, and some people, swayed by appearances alone, stood unconditionally on his side. They launched waves of online attacks against Anna and me. But soon, without even needing Anna or me to clarify, people who had been present at the scene released the full, unedited video. In an instant, Makoto became a rat crossing the street, and it wasn't long before people even dug up his history of preying on wealthy women. Wave after wave of revelations sent Makoto to the top of the trending lists. Makoto must have thought the truth would never come out so fast, that he could at least gain a wave of fans and cash in. But he hadn't expected the sheer force of money and influence to leave him nowhere to hide. His few tens of thousands of fans all abandoned him, turning to attack. So much for being a devoted second male lead. Turns out he's the real male version of a gold digger. Easy money. Just act pitiful and rich women fall for it. Ladies, don't be fooled by this kind of parasite. Gambling will ruin you for life. He even had the audacity to bite back, crying wolf. Seems yesterday's beating was too light. If anyone spots him, please give him a good smack, $20 per slap, $50 per kick. Makoto's account was permanently banned by the platform. Word spread that he was hiding in a rented flat, too afraid to step outside. Truly, evil met its own retribution, no sympathy deserved. I hardly gave him another thought. Just when I believed the matter had finally settled, Maria released a video statement. She claimed to be one of the victims of this scumbag who preyed on rich women. Makoto had professed love for her, constantly asking her for money and luxury goods. Because she liked him, she had bought him countless gifts, but he turned out to be nothing more than a shameless leech. The internet quickly rallied in sympathy. When people saw Maria's beauty paired with her pitiful story, they grew fond of her at once. To thank her new supporters, she announced a promotion. Anyone purchasing a property in Lin Real Estate's development would receive a 20% discount. Maria Lin was clever. She knew the wealthy woman persona sold well. With a single video, she gained hundreds of thousands of followers, boosting even her company's stock price. After that, I stopped paying attention, focusing instead on renovating our marital home with Anna. When we had rushed to marry, we hadn't made many changes to the house. Now, knowing Anna's tastes and habits better, I decided to redesign it thoroughly. Our new home was nearly finished when, one day, I ran into Maria at the door. She stood there holding a bouquet of flowers, with several cameras behind her. When she saw me, her face lit up with joy. "George, I've been waiting for you for so long. I'm here to apologize. I was wrong before. I listened to slander, trusted Makoto, and did many things that hurt you. But we grew up as childhood sweethearts. Even if you're married now, aren't I still your little sister? Won't you forgive me and give me another chance?" Camera lenses zoomed in on me. I looked at the meticulously dressed Maria. She knew the internet already recognized me as married, recognized me as the nation's husband. So she couldn't, like Willow, try to play the homewrecker. Instead, she chose to play the family card, retreating in order to advance. Chapter 23, The Deeper They Dig. I looked at the bouquet of flowers in her arms, then at the cameras practically shoved into my face, and asked mockingly, "Are you really here to apologize?" Maria froze for a moment, then quickly nodded. "Yes, I hope you can forgive my past mistakes." I sneered. "If this is an apology, why did you bring red roses? Since when do red roses mean apology? And another thing." I pointed at the cameras. "What does bringing them mean? We grew up together." "Yes, but that's all in the past. I don't want to rehash what happened before. I already told you. I don't want any more ties with you. As for this so-called brother-sister nonsense, you should know this, in the Wang family, there's only me. I have no sisters. I'm married, and I don't need a so-called adopted little sister. So don't disturb my life again. Don't cause trouble for my wife again. Otherwise, I will report you for harassment." Maria's eyes reddened on cue, making her look heartbreakingly pitiful. She displayed her sorrow clearly for the cameras, then even tried to pull at me. "George," but I stepped aside, avoiding her touch. "Please watch your behavior. No pulling and tugging. And I've said it before, I am not your brother. Address me properly by my full name, or better yet, don't call my name at all. Don't appear before me again." Even after such blunt words, Maria, desperate for traffic, still tried to entangle herself further. I exposed her motives directly. "So you've thrown away your dignity just for clicks? Is this what passes for Lin family upbringing? Let me be perfectly clear, you may want to use me. You may want to ride my popularity, but whether that happens depends on me, not you." Sensing conflict, the cameras zoomed in on my face, but I didn't care in the slightest. All I wanted was to protect the person I loved, so I declared loudly, "Maria, let me tell you this, my wife trusts me completely. That makes everything you're doing a complete waste of effort. But still, having flies buzzing around is annoying. You have 1 minute. If you're not gone by then, I'll call the police." And in front of all those cameras, I pulled out my phone and started dialing. Seeing I was serious, the cameraman Maria had hired realized they were in the wrong. After all, this could count as trespassing, so they tried to drag Maria away. But Maria kept looking back with every step, acting like a betrayed, heartbroken girl. To the uninformed, it looked like I was the cold-hearted man who had crushed her. Maria used these videos to paint herself as the abandoned childhood sweetheart, convinced it would give her another burst of popularity. But she hadn't expected things to backfire. This time, the audience turned on her. Netizens replayed the footage again and again, analyzing my words frame by frame. So there really are men who can see through pretentious coquettes, and are immune to them. Maybe all those excuses about not recognizing them are just as fake as the excuse of, "I was drunk and couldn't control myself." Finally, someone exposed the truth. The public's eyes are sharp after all. The nation's husband truly deserves the name. A small faction of Maria's diehard fans, along with her hired bots, tried to spin the story, claiming I was just building a devoted husband persona. They said that anyone so cold toward his childhood sweetheart couldn't possibly be faithful in love. But in bringing this up, they accidentally kicked a hornet's nest, because immediately, people began digging deeper, pulling out stories of my childhood entanglements with Maria and Willow, and later with Makoto. Chapter 24, Their Ending. I watched the videos from their childhood. Wasn't Maria and Willow's treatment of George nothing more than making him their little errand boy? They kept him from attending gym class, even sent him running several miles under the blazing 30-degree sun just to buy them their favorite snacks, just so they could brag to their girlfriends about how obedient and useful their little lackey was. Did they ever truly care about George? Poor little George, and to think he was the only son of the Wang family. In front of them, he wasn't even treated as well as a servant, and yet he endured it for over 10 years. Maria and Willow, they're heartless. And that scumbag Makoto, He was actually a scholarship student sponsored by the Wang family, but in the end, it was the farmer and the snake all over again. No wonder so many people would rather help stray animals than ever sponsor another person again. Truly chilling. Did you see the news from a year ago? Maria and Willow, just to humor Makoto, actually abandoned George at a toll station. Those three are wolves in human skin, they're not people at all. The deeper the netizens dug, the more they uncovered just how vicious the trio of Willow, Maria, and Makoto had been. Their past bullying of classmates and abuse of power were all exposed. Very soon, even the Liu family and the Lin family suffered collateral damage. Their company's stock prices plummeted sharply. And in contrast, I was like a bright moon hanging high. And even my own company rose like a rocket. I became the very embodiment of loyalty and marriage. Many online voices said how envious they were of Anna, that she had been lucky enough to meet and hold on to such a one-in-a-million man. But I responded by saying, there are many George in the world, but only one Anna, meaning that there are many good men out there too. That perspective gained me the admiration of countless men, who became my loyal supporters. Of course, none of this truly affected my life, because I lived my days for myself. I continued a loving life with Anna, and we went on our honeymoon. When we returned, we heard the news. Willow had married Makoto. It wasn't that the Liu family had abandoned her, rather, Willow had become pregnant with Makoto's child. Apparently, Makoto had tricked her into leaving home, and when Willow Liu returned, she was already carrying his child. She wanted to terminate the pregnancy. She didn't want Makoto's child, nor to be tied to him, but a pregnant Willow had lost her value for an arranged marriage. In the end, she had no choice but to marry Makoto. The next time I saw Willow was at a street food stall. Gone was her former arrogance. She avoided my eyes, finally venting her frustration on Makoto instead. The customers here, hurry up and serve the food. Makoto had changed from a delicate pretty boy into a greasy middle-aged man. His hair messy, his face covered in stubble. Though clearly unhappy with Willow's bossing, he restrained himself, still hoping to squeeze more benefits from the Liu family through her. So he kept silent, but the effort showed on his face. His expression darkened with hostility, his hands striking the cooking utensils harder and louder. Chapter 25, the finale. Seeing the scene, I shook my head. I had once thought Makoto's personality was just awkward, but only recently did I understand. His problem was that he always wanted both ways. If he truly loved money, he could have chosen a wealthy woman, treated her well, and been loyal to her. After all, there are many wealthy women in this world who crave love, and they had once been taken in by his good looks, but instead, he played with feelings, trying to toy with one rich woman after another, until eventually he ended up despised by everyone, abandoned and cursed. Later, he chose to be with Willow, but even then, he used despicable means to get her. The result? His life still turned into a complete mess. I simply pulled Anna away. My wife is pregnant. She doesn't eat this. Even far from the stall, I could still hear Willow and Makoto screaming at each other hysterically, frightening customers away. Hearing it, I sighed helplessly. Street food stalls aren't shameful at all, so long as one lives by their own effort. It is honorable. But Willow was never content with her circumstances. Before, she was dissatisfied with me, dissatisfied with arranged marriages, and in the end, even after marrying Makoto, she remained dissatisfied. How could anyone live well if they were always discontent? But none of that had anything to do with me anymore. Not long after, I ran into Maria again in the square. Since her attempt to use me backfired, her pitiful White Lotus persona was shattered, branded as a pretentious coquette. From then on, it was as if she had gone mad for fame, desperately trying to walk the path of infamous notoriety. But netizens no longer bought it. In fact, they despised her more and more. At that moment, in front of the cameras, she was trying to make another cheap stunt, but security drove her off. Get lost. Hurry up and get out of here. It's people like you who corrupt the kids. If you dare come back, I'll smash your phone. Maria fled in disgrace. I felt no sympathy. In the end, every person walks the path they choose. If someone insists on heading into darkness, what does that have to do with others? I supported pregnant Anna as we strolled leisurely forward. Still, there were always those who doubted that a man could remain faithful for life, that true lifelong love existed. So they kept trying to secretly follow and film us. But 10-20 years passed. By the time we celebrated our silver wedding, golden wedding, even diamond wedding anniversaries, we never once felt the so-called 7-year itch. Instead, our love only deepened. Even after Anna's muteness was cured, I still preferred using sign language with her. When our hands spoke, our gazes met as if the world around us disappeared, leaving only each other. What other men might see as a flaw had become our private romance. One day, as we prepared to go out, I wanted to choose blue jewelry for my silver-haired Anna, but she teasingly refused, saying blue was pure and youthful, while her beauty had long faded. I gently touched her wrinkled face, my gaze as full of love as the day we first met. Signing, I told her, every jewel in this world, no matter how rare, is counterfeit in my eyes. The only true masterpiece is your face.